How do you hold your sellers accountable? How do you make sure that when you get a contract signed, your sellers don't just fall off the face of the earth? I'm going to tell you how in my company, we hold sellers accountable. We make sure that they know what is going on throughout the transaction. I'm going to tell you exactly how we do it. Stay tuned. Man, it is such a bummer when you get a seller signed contract, you get a buyer on board, and the next thing you know, you're calling this seller over and over again, and they're nowhere to be found, right? We like to call that ghosting. The seller at this point is ghosting you. Now, something probably happened. Either you didn't build rapport good enough, most likely they got a higher offer. There's something going on in that seller's head, and it's better for them just to avoid the conversation versus actually talking with you. And this happens more than I would like to admit. So within my company, what we did is we started putting together when sellers do this to us. And we started trying to figure out what happened leading up to these points to make these sellers think it's better just to ignore our conversations versus talking to us. Now, surprisingly, what we found is the sellers didn't hear a lot from us, right? We locked up the contract with them, we brought it back, we went and viewed the property, and then silence. So maybe a week went by and they're like, wow, I don't even know if this company's still buying my house anymore. And that was a big problem we were running into. We just didn't have, we had follow-up sequences for leads, but we really didn't have follow-up sequences built in for when we actually get contracts. So let me tell you guys what we did. My transaction coordinator in the office, he runs all of our transactions. He works between escrow and my office here to make sure that everything is done. Basically, all of our I's dotted and T's crossed to make sure there's no issues. What we started having him do, if you started to have him contact our sellers once a week at a minimum. Anytime something happened within the transaction, he would contact them and make sure they knew. So, hey, Mr. Seller, I was just calling to let you know that we did get title back and it's clear. Or, hey, Mr. Seller, we did get your payoff back from the bank, and it looks like the payoff's about $170,000. So we're good to go on that. I'll go ahead and give you a call here in a couple days when we're ready to proceed. So these sellers are starting to know everything going on within these transactions, and they're feeling more comfortable. Now, what we found is having that friendly face on the other end of the line, friendly voice on the other end of the line. People like talking to us. By following up with them and keeping them in the loop, we started receiving better reviews. We started receiving more reviews. We started realizing that it took one phone call to get in touch with someone instead of 4. And that makes a big difference when your business grows. If it takes 1 contact versus 4, that saves you a ton of time over hundreds of deals per year. So we make sure that we talk to the seller. That's it. We talk to them. We don't sign a contract, move on, and then talk to them on closing day. We keep them in the loop every single step of the way. Let me give you another example. Let's say a new lead came into your company. So Betty calls us and Betty says, hey, I want to sell my house to you. Scott, I'm ready to sell right now, and I will take $100,000 for my house. Okay. You call Betty, you tell her you can get to about 90 grand. She's not quite there. And you just say, forget it, and you never call her back again. Well, Betty sells to someone else for $80,000 6 weeks later. Probably because that person followed up with her. Now, we let that lead go. So Betty thought we weren't interested anymore, or we're a company that just doesn't follow up. So that other company got the lead even cheaper, and we completely missed out. But by putting a follow-up sequence in place, somebody like Betty's going to hear from us. They're going to hear from us through text messages, emails, ringless voicemails, manual phone calls. Never forget the manual phone calls, because it shows those people that we actually care enough to pick up the phone and make that call.
We get 60% of our deals from follow-up, and we'll do 200 deals this year. That's a big number when you look at that. You need to design a follow-up sequence, and that will be multiple buckets, right? So seller does not want to sell right now, maybe in the future. All right, so what are you gonna do? Maybe you Send an email once a month, check in with them. Call them every other month, something like that. So build that sequence out that never ends. Then, so now you're building the follow-up sequence for that. So okay, they're not quite ready yet, but they do want to sell. So you might call them once a week. Then you got sellers that you can't get back in touch with that called you. So now you got to build a sequence for that. You start these 3 sequences and you're going to keep following and don't give up. And if you use Podio at all, something like that, you can set reminders in Podio based on all that stuff.
Most likely, if we keep doing that, we're going to get such good rapport built with these sellers that they will sell to us for a cheaper price. We are rarely ever the highest offer on the deals we go into. However, we typically get the deal signed because we are building rapport with these people. We're following up with these people. Whether it's a brand new lead coming in or whether it's a seller you already have signed, do not forget to stay in touch with them. As you grow your business and as you realize you do not have enough time in a day, do not forget that one simple fact. If you do not follow up, you will run into a hard time.
Okay, you see what he did? He French fried when he should have pizzaed. You French fry when you pizza, you're gonna have a bad time.
Make sure you guys are doing that. Make sure you're spending that extra time to go the extra mile. For us, a lot of our sellers are older. So for them, a handshake is a big thing. You know, they want to be in person with us. They want to shake hands. They don't know what the heck DocuSign is. They want us to be calling them and they want us to be talking to them. And you know what's funny is when you call some of these older people, you can talk to them for like 45 minutes before you even get to what you're calling for. To be like, hey Fred, how are you today? Oh, I'm doing good. And next thing you know, you're talking about grandkids' games and you're talking about family that lives nearby. And you say, oh Fred, you ready to sell now? You ready to get that house done? Nope, not yet. Okay, great, Fred, I'll call you back in a week, but I will call them back in a week. If you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. So follow-up is one of the most important things at a business. 60% of our deals come from follow-up. So if you look at that and say, if I never followed up with anybody, I would lose potentially 60% of my deals and potentially 60% of my revenue by not doing that one simple thing. Everyone always thinks they need more leads. That's not necessarily true. What if you could figure out how to work the current leads you have better? For example, following up with those leads. Follow up with them, lock them up, close them, get the money in, now put more money into marketing. Very simple process. I hope this helped you guys out. We'll talk to you guys next time.